Hey guys, real quick, before we get into it, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. That way, you don't miss out on any of the tea. Thanks.
Hey,
Hi,
Tasha.
Charles.
Hi. This is one of those I call like sassy episodes in my head.
It's a sassy episode.
It's we've been talking about more informational stuff, but sometimes we gotta dip our toes into the more controversial stuff, right? So here we are talking about a controversial topic, and that is the current at the national stage, but also potentially here in New Orleans, the deployment of troops into U.S. cities.
Yes.
I teach an Intro to Cities class, and every semester we always follow a topic in a lot of their quizzes, and this semester speaks for itself. And I keep telling them, y'all are a hell of a time to take an Intro to Cities class right now, because y'all are seeing cities
History happening.
Correct. So, little urban studies lecture, right? So right now, President Trump has issued some deployment of troops into cities.
Yes.
And the list so far, this is over the past 6 months: Los Angeles, Chicago.
Yeah.
He's mentioned Baltimore.
DC.
DC was the actual 30-day emergency, and he's also called out Memphis.
Yes.
And then
Portland.
New Orleans. Portland. I keep forgetting about Portland.
How can you forget about Portland?
I'm gonna be honest. When the Portland one came out, my gut reaction was, "Wow, that was not on my bingo card." Like, we don't think of Portland as this. If we just, I don't know, the Portland thing threw me off usually, right? And then New Orleans, right? But what's unique about New Orleans is that Trump explicitly has called the other cities, but in our state, our governor has offered the opportunity. Extended an invitation.
Put in a formal request.
And
so he has put in a formal
correct.
request for federal funds
Yes.
to fund the deployment of the Louisiana National Guard to Louisiana cities.
Correct. Which not just New Orleans, but New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport.
And Shreveport, yes.
Right? And that has not yet happened.
Correct.
The other cities have. So DC had their 30-day thing in August, September. Chicago right now is a lot. Portland. But New Orleans, Louisiana City is not yet. So we're kind of in a waiting game right now, I guess.
Well,
I don't really know.
I think one of the big differences, right, is that these other cities where this has happened have been on the president's radar.
Correct.
And this is direct and explicit action from the federal level versus this, like, please send us some dollars request from our governor.
It was a unique situation. Like, right.
Is a little bit different in that clearly the state of Louisiana is not equipped to just fund this on our own, right? Because our governor, if he really wanted to do this, would have just deployed the troops on his own accord. So I think it does speak volumes about the financial position our state is in that he could not do this without those federal dollars. There has not been those dollars deployed. So also, again, I think it's kind of speaks to this may not necessarily be high on the radar at the federal level, and that the cities that they do want to address this in, they're in. They've sent troops to those cities, right? Of all of the things that we could ask for federal dollars for here in Louisiana, as we enter into sort of the high peak of hurricane season, I think about our coast and those kinds of resources. Federal dollars to deploy the National Guard to cities here in Louisiana really feels like a misuse and a misplacement of where federal dollars could be going here in our state.
And to add to that, and this is how I frame it out in my class, what is so kind of, I guess, frustrating for a lot of people, there's two sides to this argument of, whether or not we should be doing this in the first place.
Yeah.
Is the role of data and statistics,
Yes.
right? At the end of the day, the statistics show that these cities are in historic declines in crime right now.
Yeah.
So the data, and that's a big conversation in my class, right? The mismatch between the perception of crime in cities and what the data is showing
you.
In an age of viral social media, so like if you're on TikTok and you see a murder in a city, right? Yeah, that's like in any murder is bad, correct? But it's not representative of the trend of like.
The juxtaposition between what the data shows versus sort of the perception of fear that has been created by social media, and also this proliferation of people just being fed images of the worst,
Yep.
right? We see that there's riots or murders or whatever, and it's like, yes, but that is not the average American's
Yes.
normal day-to-day experience.
And, you know, the other thing, too, is, and we talk about the power of language, right?
Yeah.
It's not saying we're fighting crime. We're declaring a war on the enemy of within.
Yes.
In American cities,
Yeah.
right? And, you know, I really stress upon my students the power of language matters.
Absolutely.
Because it frames your narrative, it frames your understanding, and it creates a guise and a justification to do something. And, you know, I want to be clear, this is very unprecedented.
Yeah.
We've never seen this before, right? This deployment of troops outside of an emergency. There's the whole legal realm behind this, right? That presidents do have the power to do this, but under certain legal conditions.
Yeah.
And when you're saying words like a war within, it blurs that line between the legal way to do that versus I'm just going to do this.
Right.
And the courts are stopping this, so it's a back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And this is why we're studying it in my class a lot. But again, that mismatch, right? The language, the data, the perception, all of it. And the one other thing that's frustrating, we saw this with DC, is after the 30-day declaration, the Washington Post did an analysis of all the arrests and kind of the geography of it. And this is not surprising to me, but if your argument is combating crime, you would think that the deployment would be in high crime neighborhoods. They're not.
Right.
They're in tourist neighborhoods,
right?
Wealthy neighborhoods. So that begs the question, what is the actual argument and justification for actually, like, if it's a crime, why aren't you going to crime neighborhoods, right?
Well, not just that. What is a high crime neighborhood? Why is there higher crime in those neighborhoods are all questions to ask. But also, I think
and is truth the answer to
we as Americans, we don't live in a military state.
Correct.
And I think people really underestimate what it feels like to live in a military
1000%.
state. You know, all roads lead back to Katrina, and I can remember the first time I came back to the city of New Orleans after the storm. And it was months later. I didn't come back until probably December or January.
That was your first time back
my
after
first
August?
time coming back into the city. And I can remember how shocking it was to see the National Guard everywhere. I mean, armed with like serious.
So we had the National Guard was
serious-
sent to New Orleans after Katrina in those chaotic months
patrolling
after.
the streets.
And it was a presence that we got used to,
but
in a jarring way.
But that initial, like, oh, you know, I'm on St. Charles Avenue, I'm on Carrollton Avenue, and like there's just like military. Like, this is alarming. And yes, you know that they are there for your safety, and that they're supposed to be there to protect the population, but at the same time, walking around your like oak tree lined streets of your city and seeing soldiers everywhere is disconcerting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think this perception of there's so much crime and we have to get it under control, and the way to do that is to send in the military. I think Americans really need to sit with whether or not you actually want to live in a military state, if that is actually what we're looking for, and if that is actually the solution to the perception of excessive crime in our cities, because I do think it's important to stress that it is a perception of
absolutely
crime, not necessarily a reality or an actuality of crime.
I agree. And you know, you just made me think of this. Yesterday, I can't remember what newspaper it was, but the governor of Oklahoma did an op-ed saying he's not in favor of this. And he said that if they were to send troops to his cities in Oklahoma, they would have a fit.
Yeah.
Right. So now you have a governor of a red state saying, "Whoa, I don't actually.
We don't want that.
We would not stand for that. So why are people in Oklahoma cheering?" Like, so that was really interesting. I was like, wow, I did not see that coming.
To see that pushback, yeah.
Correct. To see that level of pushback, right? You know, the other thing is that's unique about New Orleans is, and I see this a lot in the comment sections, is we have, besides Katrina, you know, the Bourbon Street terrorist attack, military presence in the French Quarter. And it's still there. And then not even that, backtrack, when Governor Landry became governor, he deployed state troopers to police. So we've become almost at the forefront of this already, right? And so it's not new to us.
But I think there's a difference between deploying the state troopers who are a police force.
Right, correct.
and deploying the National Guard,
Yes.
the military.
Who is not trained to...
There's a difference,
Yeah.
right? And
Agreed.
what the types of things that on a regular basis, even when they're not deployed to the city, state troopers are dealing with are very different than the training and expectations of military personnel. And the National Guard are military personnel, so I do want to make that very clear distinction. Troop NOLA and Louisiana
True.
state troopers having a presence in the city is
You're
something
right.
completely different than having your city patrolled by military. And we can go back and forth about the benefits or the problems that might have been presented by the state troopers being here, but I do think that's just a very different thing, and I don't want to also stay too zeroed in on New Orleans, right? Because he said he
Baton Rouge
wants
and Shreveport,
this for Baton Rouge and Shreveport as well, and so I think it's really important to make sure we're having these conversations about, is that really the best thing for our communities? Baton Rouge is our state capital. Shreveport is kind of like our biggest major city in the northern part of our state. Both, I think, are cities that have seen their fair share of economic struggles, certainly struggles with regards to crime issues, but is that solution sending the National Guard?
It's like,
Or is that solution, how are we looking at investing into those communities? How are we looking at business development opportunities in those communities? How are we looking at, changing the real estate landscape, right? Like when you think about Shreveport and the downtown and how many things are abandoned and closed, and it's like, how much of this is crime that's related to crime of desperation or crime of opportunity, distressed communities, right? And so how are we turning the tide for these communities and building them up, not converting our cities into military states?
Yeah. And I want to be clear. This this week, Chief Kirkpatrick said that they were meeting this week. Right?
Yeah.
So they are meeting.
Yeah.
Right. So, and if I'm not mistaken, one of the articles I read was, it's just going to be deployed. We're not going to be told ahead of time. We're going to wake up and
and
they're
here.
They're in New Orleans. They're in Baton Rouge. They're in Shreveport. Right. So it is happening, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The other thing, though, is we are in the midst of a government shutdown right now. And so, again, part of this is tied to a request for federal funds to be able to fund this.
Now, how does that play? I don't know how that plays a role in all
so
this. Yeah.
It will be interesting to see.
Girl, we are in interesting times right now. What is happening half
how
the time?
this all plays out, right?
Wait, so I do have to share a joke. I saw someone on social media. She lives in New Orleans, and she was doing a parody of what that actually looks like, the troops. We keep hearing people talking about this hand grenades, permission to fire, right? We're in the French Quarter. We keep seeing these y'all means all signs. What do we do? Right? So just kind of, she was playing, and I keep seeing Portland. We're at farmers markets right now. The crime at the farmers markets right now. So it's just kind of interesting seeing how cities, we're joking right now, but there is resistance, right? Whether through humor or actual, wait, this is absurd. What is that going on right now?
Yeah.
And I want to say it is interesting, the discrepancy between people who actually live in these cities and then the outsiders, right? And it's so who do we actually trust in terms of speaking? Who gets to speak on behalf of
them?
How crime is in that city?
And who gets to determine the quality of life of the people in that community?
Yes.
And obviously it should be the people who live in the community.
Right.
But it really seems like a lot of outside influence and a lot of outside perception is what is sort of being pushed onto these cities. Yeah. So what do you think? What are we going to wake up in the next few days and see National Guardsmen in our cities?
Yes, I do.
Do you think there's a priority? Is it New Orleans is the focus? Is it Shreveport? Is it Baton Rouge?
I think there'll be a little more New Orleans, but a roughly even split for Shreveport, and just because they're a little bit smaller cities, Shreveport and Baton Rouge. But I think it's going to happen within the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that. I'm thinking it's just, Governor Landry is clear. He's requested it formally. Chief Kirkpatrick has met with him this week. It's happening. It's inevitable. I think it'll be interesting to see where exactly. Like, is it going to be kind of a rehash and it's just in the French Quarter downtown areas, or are they going to be in like neighborhoods?
What kind of patrols are you going to see,
Correct.
right? Because I think, one thing that makes New Orleans a bit different than some of the other cities where we've seen these sort of deployments is we have very different public transit infrastructure, right? So it's primarily the buses. We also have like the streetcar. There isn't, like in DC, the metro, or like in Chicago, metro platforms and things for them to patrol places where it's public spaces that people are consistently in large numbers congregating on a regular basis. So I would be intrigued to see what do these patrols even look like in our communities, and what value do we think they're going to add with regards to actual safety?
I'm thinking in my head now I'm actually genuinely curious, where in Baton Rouge would they patrol? Where in Shreveport would they patrol?
Right. I mean, especially too when you think of both in Baton Rouge and Shreveport, for sure more so Shreveport than Baton Rouge, but like even the downtown, right? It's very quiet.
That's
it's
what I'm saying.
Sleepy.
Yeah, that's
There's
why
not
I'm
a whole lot
like,
going on. So where are you actually deploying these resources to quote unquote
Girl,
patrol
great question.
and keep people safe, allegedly?
Yeah. So we'll keep following this. This is not just here.
Yeah,
it's happening on the national stage right now. Covering it in my class, covering it on this podcast. And all y'all should be following it too, right? Because this does affect all of us in different ways, right?
So we will definitely keep our eye on what's going on. We will bring you updates as they come out. And if there are any other topics that you would like us to discuss or you would like to hear about, definitely let us know. Drop it in a comment, send us a DM on socials, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
All right, till next time.
Bye.
Bye, Pelican Briefers.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Pelican Briefs.
If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
If you are loving the show, you can help us keep the conversation going by supporting us on Patreon.
Your contribution on Patreon ensures we can continue producing quality content you love.
Click the link in the description to become a patron today.
Until next time, this is Pelican Briefs.